plan to fail. Ouch. Truth, but it's going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And this is so important because a lot of times failure will derail you from a growth mindset and you will revert back to who you were previously. And so instead of that happening, going into the whole scenario, you need to say, you know what? There's going to be a time where I wake up and I tweak my shoulder and I'm not going to do the 100 push-ups, right?
Yep.
And you need to decide ahead of time what you're going to do about that.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. My name is Josh Denhart. Grateful that you're here. We have just recently, it's our second episode into the new rebranding and the new name, the Lead Ministry Podcast. It's been the Lead Volunteers Podcast for about 4 years. It's been very successful. A lot of great feedback, a lot of great following. So now it's just a different name. It's the same good stuff, but it's just a different name. We felt that we will still talk about volunteers, of course, but there's a larger calling to different areas, kind of a more holistic approach to leading successfully in ministry. Well, very grateful that you guys have joined us. Well, another big announcement that we did make last week, but we want to continue to announce this, is that we have a brand new co-host. You've heard him on the podcast before, but it's now beyond official. This is Bill Van Kirk. Just Bill, quick say hi, tell about yourself just a little bit, and we'll get into our topic for the day.
Yeah, so I am so excited that I get to co-host. It's like a huge honor and privilege. I just love the ministry world. I'm a pastor in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I feel like this stage of my life, God has really been drawing me to how do I share my years of experience in multiple areas of ministry and help others. And so I'm just so excited to be able to help people out. And this podcast has been awesome for me to listen to. And so it's an honor really to be on it now. Yeah.
You're the regular now, bro. And of course, part of your gifting is you edit all the podcasts and you do all of the things that make the podcast do its thing. So of course, if you out there in podcast world, if you are on social media at all, we want to let you know that we have these wonderful brand new things and you can see them. It's kind of these little shorts, these little reels that are snippets from the conversations that Bill and I are having, maybe some other conversations that I'm having with other people as well. But check those out, share those, send them around to your friends. We would be extremely, extremely honored. Well, we're grateful that you guys are here. We're doing a brand new series on the podcast about leading yourself and how you can be truly a better human, a better follower of Christ, a better employee at your church or a better volunteer at your church by effectively leading yourself. So last week we talked about setting your core values. Everything starts from the foundation of having a set of core values. Now today, Bill, talk to us about what we're going to be jumping into.
Yeah, so today we are actually talking about growth mindset, okay? And whereas last week you're trying to build a foundation, this week, we're trying to kind of put into your mind that actually you are not a fixed entity. As much as you think that you are who you are and that you're stuck in your ways and you'll never change, that is actually a way to torpedo your life.
Yeah. The funny thing is that is a self-fulfilling prophetic internal tape that you're playing.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's not good at all.
Yeah. And so we're super excited to talk about this idea of cultivating a growth mindset.
Right. That's a piece to leading yourself, and you can torpedo yourself. And so of course on the podcast, we try to have, let's define this. That's one bucket. Another bucket we'll pour into is let's develop it. Let's take this idea deeper of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And then let's put some feet to it. Let's get some action here. So as we're going to now define this. We need to talk about cultivating a growth mindset. I love the idea of this contrast between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. We do actually have the capacity to get better as human beings. That's a fact.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm going to share really quick a book in the beginning, because when I listen to podcasts, I often go, oh, that person just said something about a resource and I really want to like go deeper. So if you want
Sure,
to
of
do a
course.
deep dive in this, there is a book out there. It is called Personality Isn't Permanent. Okay.
Interesting. I like
It's
this.
it's from an author named Benjamin Hardy. He's an organizational psychologist. He is also a person of faith, but he is more of the Mormon faith. Okay. But you'll see that he shares a lot of values with believers, right? And so but the book is just phenomenal because what it does is it actually begins to help you rethink a lot of what we're told about
Mm-hmm.
our personalities. Because this is one of the areas where people are like, my personality is my personality, right? And so like it can't be changed. For instance, it's saying something like, hey, I'm just not good with money. I'm just not good with money. So it is what it is. Like, I'm just never going to be good with money. I never have been good with money. I never will be good with money. And when we say things like that to ourselves, that
Right.
is actually preventing us from God coming in and growing us in that area. And you can pick anything you want.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not organized. I'm not a very outgoing person. I am, like whatever, just fill in the blank. If you begin to tell yourself those things over and over again, they become absolutely true because you don't have a mindset that will allow you to like go deeper. So I just want to throw that up right up front is that
Yes.
resource is really good.
Yes. And I think what you're saying is extremely, extremely important because I have heard people throw their hands up and in a joking way, they say, oh, I'm just not organized. Okay.
Yes.
You may actually have a bit of a proclivity toward disorganization,
Sure.
but that does not mean that you have to stay there.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Marie,
you may start.
Marie Kondo, man.
Yeah. Literally, that's my love language. Don't even start with me. Marie Kondo. Yeah. But the thing is that you may start at an organization level 2.
Yes.
And going to a 4.5, that is a victory.
Yes.
I'm for you.
Yes,
but the idea
absolutely.
that you are preset as a 2 and there's a lid, fundamentally not true.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, like this book kind of rocked my world a little bit because it does actually go after something that I previously loved, which is like all of these personality tests that people take, right? Like you go online and you do the Myers-Briggs or whatever, all of those things. And I think those things are helpful in this sense that they tell you where you're at right now.
Yes.
But they're unhelpful in this sense that it kind of makes it seem like that's just who you are and you can't become something different, right?
And that's just not true.
Right. Absolutely. So it's kind of like you have to say like, hey, this is a good assessment for me to see how I'm performing right now. But when you like, you have to tell yourself 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, I can actually be a lot different, right? How many kids grow up ultra shy?
Right.
Like they're just shy children. And then they grow up and they're like on the stage, right? Like they're like people who are just like powerhouses in front of audiences. And no one would have guessed that they would ever be that way, but they changed and they grew. And that's the mindset that we need to have.
Well, here is this book. Can you see this, Bill? Can you see my screen here?
Yep.
And so this is the book, Personality Isn't Permanent. I think this is actually a really important thing. Benjamin Hardy, hey, listen, I don't give 2 rips whether he's Mormon, whether he's Hindu, whether he's Christian. Right. Get this. At the end of the day, truth is truth. And the idea that your personality isn't permanent, like, I don't care from where that's coming from. That's a true statement.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, am I intelligent enough to sift through things where somebody might be bringing in a worldview? Yes, but I'm certainly not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So, very excited about this concept. Let's take it actually even a little bit deeper. So, you're cultivating a growth mindset. Help us with this definition. I like this.
Yeah. So, our mindset it actually refers to the set of beliefs and attitudes that shape how we perceive and respond to the world around us. Okay. So it's kind of like how you're showing up to everything in your life. Like
right.
What attitude are you bringing into it?
That is what I think is the most important part. How are you showing up? Are you showing up as kind of a curmudgeon with your arms crossed and you're not open to new information and you're kind of a crusty old critter?
Yeah.
Or are you like, hey man, like I've let my guard down. I'm open. I'm open.
Right. Absolutely. And, actually kids are really good at having this
Yes, they are.
this idea where they're like, I was actually just listening to this other podcast that was talking all about what actually helps people be successful. Like, what are the things that actually help people be successful? And they did this huge study on people who learn multiple languages, polyglots, I think they're called.
Oh my word, that sounds painful and horrible. I have a fixed mindset as it comes as it relates. I'm sorry, confession. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they did this study and they're like, what is the difference between people who can't or believe they can't, learn a language and the people who can like learn multiple languages like really quickly? And the answer really is it all comes down to people's willingness to make mistakes.
Interesting.
And so they're like, if you're willing to like go out there and do it and fail and make mistakes, you will grow exponentially in learning how to speak a language. And that's actually, besides brain plasticity, that's actually why kids are so good at it, because they'll learn a phrase in a foreign language and they'll just tell everyone, even if they're saying it wrong, they'll still say it, that's how they learn.
That's good. And so not being afraid, I think it was John Acuff. I'm going to mess it up, but I think he said like accept that you suck for a while.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think you shared that before, but that's absolutely true.
Like be okay with sucking for a while.
Yeah. And we have to get basically you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. And comfortable with failure, which is actually okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we got this growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Are you predetermining, well, I'm kind of this way. Well, you don't have to be that way.
Right.
And you can morph and you can change. So let's jump in to this piece here. Can you read this quote for us, Bill?
Yes. If you argue for your limitations, you keep them. Let me just stop there for a second. If you argue for your limitations, you keep them. In other words, if you continually say over and over again,
I'm bad with money.
I'm bad with money. I'm not organized. I'm lazy. I don't finish things. I'm always messing up. I'm a terrible person. If you keep saying those things to you, guess what? You get to keep those things.
Right.
You're speaking that over your life. Like that's who I'm going to be because I keep telling myself that's who I'm going to be.
Correct.
But if you agree with God about your potential, you grow into it. Okay.
Yes.
And so let me share a spiritual example of this. There's this passage. It's in 2 Peter. I think it's 1:3, and it says that that Jesus, by his divine power, has given us everything we need for a godly life. Okay?
2 Peter chapter 1.
Yes.
2 Peter 1.
2 Peter 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then what area of your sin have you said, I'm just like this? I'm stuck in this area of my life and I can't change it, whether it's an addiction or it's a sin area you keep coming back to.
Or if it's just that you kind of have a proclivity toward anger and outbursts and you just get ticked off. And in a meeting, you're like, well, I am who I am.
Right.
It's like, okay, he has given us everything we need for life and godliness through the true knowledge of him who called us according to his own glory and excellence.
Yes.
Then it goes on to say, for by those things, his glory and excellence, he has granted to us. I mean, that's big.
Yes, absolutely. And so if you believe that, which it's God's word, right? If you believe that, then that means you actually are moving from a fixed mindset of I'm stuck in this way of thinking and doing things to actually God's given me the power that I need in order to change this in my life.
Yeah. So what I want to do is challenge everybody who's on the podcast right now. Just go, okay, if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, what is the thing that you feel like is like standard issue for you? It is the way that it is. You're stuck. And you've just accepted that. And maybe that could change. And I need to think about those things. I think our listeners need to think about those things. Do you really believe that? Or would you be willing to have an open mind that this can change about you, that you can have a mid-course or a mid-life correction? God has granted to us everything that we need according to his divine power. He's granted to us everything that we need, and we need just to take him up on that. And I can think of the one for my life, and I'm going to work on that. I'm not going to just accept the idea that my past patterns are the single best indicator of my future behaviors. Doesn't have to be that way.
Amen.
Well, so we're talking about this idea of shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. You actually can change. And so some tools for that. Talk to us about this one here, try versus train.
Yes. Okay. So this idea, this actually comes from Craig Rochelle. He talks about this in his book, in multiple of his books, but he talks about how you actually need to change your language. You know, how you talk about things actually matters. And so if somebody comes to you and they say, you know, I know, you know, you're on this journey of health or weight loss or whatever it is, just fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going? And you go, well, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to eat better. I'm trying to get better at this in my life. That's actually indicative of a fixed mindset, because you're saying, I'm not willing to go all the way there. I'm just saying I'm trying to. I'm just making efforts, right? And so
like,
you actually,
it's like all of a sudden you're like, you know, I'm doing this now, but I don't know. Well,
yeah, we'll see.
Kind of, yeah. So it's the idea of you're full on. It's in. Talk to us about train. So that's try. Talk to us about train.
Yeah. So training is this idea that like, hey, I'm not perfect at it yet. Let's just acknowledge that up front. I'm not going to be perfect at this, but I'm actually training. And what I'm training for is to become this type of person, right?
Right.
So I'm not just trying to lose weight. I'm training myself, which gives this idea of an incremental, you know,
step by step,
moving towards something.
You're going to have some, as we talked about, this neuroplasticity in kids who are willing to make mistakes. I'm willing. Okay, so here's my deal. I am trying to get into better shape. I did have the COVID-19 pounds. Not a fan. I'm over it. I want to change it. And so what have I been doing? I've been doing 100 push-ups every single day.
Yeah.
And I started at 10, right? And I was like, okay, I'm sore. And I moved up, and now I'm, you know, cracking out 100 to 150 a day. Fine. Don't put a big badge on me. Fine. But the thing that's true is that just yesterday I did 100, and I kind of tweaked my arm, and it hurts a little bit. So I'm in training, and I'm all of a sudden going to go tweak my arm. You know, it's over. I tried. No, I'm going to make some adjustments, and I'm going to continue to go with that failure that I have. It was the way that I was holding my hands. I'm training. I'm going to change something. I'm going to tweak my process toward the goal of becoming more healthy.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly it. You got it.
And the other thing too is, and I really want to speak to this because somebody may say, well, you know, I'm kind of the disorganized one. Stop saying that.
Yes, absolutely. You're trying. And then when you clean your desk, you're like, well, I'm trying to be a more organized person. No, you're not trying. You're training. You're training every time that you organize something and you do it well. You're training to become a more organized person.
Yes. So this fixed mindset of defining that you are. No, thank you. Right. Okay. Obstacle is opportunity. Talk to us about this.
Yeah. So this is like identifying the areas of your life where you're like, man, I do have a fixed mindset. I'm stuck in this area. The problems that come up over and over again are the things you should go after. So you want to know, like, where do I have a fixed mindset? Man, where have I felt stuck for a really long time? Where are those areas? And those are opportunities for you to shift your mindset from a fixed mindset to a flexible one, right?
Yeah.
To a growth one.
And by the way, with moving toward a flexible, more malleable mindset, even about organization, because here's the thing. One of the big successes that I have found in helping other people in ministry is truly helping them to become organized.
Right.
I mean, like one of the big three, as far as what I'm seeking to do with leadministry.com, number one, get organized. Number two, lead with confidence and stop the revolving door of volunteers. And number three, I don't even remember what the last one is. Who cares? But my first one is get organized. And the funny thing, Bill, is that we all happen to have. By the way, it's prevent burnout is the third one, right? So get organized, lead with confidence, prevent burnout. If you do those two things, you're going to prevent burnout. I have watched so many leaders that they are haphazard in their organization. And the funny thing is, every one of us has a gift that we've been bestowed with spiritual gift. I happen to have the gift of administration. It is the gift of being organized and helping organize things so that the administration of the gospel happens in an easier way. And so I then am leveraging my gift to help people in the church to clean up their systems just a little bit. And those people that are out there who are a little bit disorganized, stop identifying that you are just this way.
Yes,
you don't
absolutely.
have to be that way. And so what do? You get in front of the right people. You start learning different patterns. You actually are diligent. Again, we talked about this on the last episode. Diligence is doing what nobody wants to do when nobody wants to do it. The last thing that you want to do is to clean your area before you head home for the evening. You're like, I'm tired. I don't want to mess with this. Tomorrow will be better if you literally scour your area and you walk in the next day to a completely solved, cleaned up area. Simple step, but that could be something that somebody does and moves towards, okay, I can now train myself to clean everything by the end of every day. It's just a thought.
Yeah. And can I tell you a trick for that?
Sure, please.
I have an awesome trick for this. And this applies to really any area, but we'll apply it to organization. So you simply go to yourself, what would I do right now if I was an organized person? This sounds stupid, okay?
Well, what would I do if I was?
Right. What would I do if I was an organized person right now? And it sounds like this stupid little mind trick you're playing on yourself. I can tell you firsthand, it actually works. You just live out what an organized person would do, right?
And then you actually adopt those patterns and those behaviors.
Yes. And it's like this Jedi mind trick that you just played on yourself, but it actually works because often it's not a problem of knowing what to do. It's just that you have a fixed mindset that you're not a person who does it. So you can say, what would a person in my position, what would they do if they were organized? And it like comes to you and then you just do that thing.
It sounds simple, but I'm actually thinking about the thing that I would like to change in my life. What would somebody who is training themselves to be 19 pounds less around the waistline, what would they do? Okay.
Yes.
That's the thing that I'm going to do.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, my word. Well, this is good. So we're talking about obstacles are your opportunities. We're talking about try versus train. We want to train. Identify the talk to me here, Bill.
Identity.
Thank you.
Identify the identity. I know.
Oh, bro.
I try to make them alliterations, but
no, they're great. They're fantastic. But I mean, like all of a sudden I look at it and it's like all of a sudden I have like momentary dyslexia, and it's not funny. I'm just kind of like, whoa, I don't even know how to read right now.
Yes, identify the identity. So a lot of times, the actions that you're taking day to day are based on an identity that you've created for yourself.
Which is, I'm not the organized person. Which is, I'm just kind of not. I'm not the buff in shape guy. And I'm not talking about buff, but I'm saying like, I'm not the health oriented person.
Right.
Throw our hands
absolutely.
up.
So like, I mean, going back to this idea of like, God's given us everything we need for a life of godliness through our knowledge of him who called us by his, so like
glory and excellence. Yeah.
Right. So like when I'm struggling with something, maybe it's I'm being curt with my wife, or I'm frustrated with something at work and I'm not bringing my best self to the table. I will often in the next morning when I sit down to journal, I will write in my journal, God has given me everything I need to change this.
Right.
You know, like there's nothing that, the only thing preventing me from changing this is believing that I can't. Right. And
That's
believing
right.
that I have an identity that is like stuck in this area of my life. It's not. God has actually called me to change this, and he is giving me the power to do so.
Yes.
So I can do this today.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I actually think, I am not, okay, stick with me here. I'm not a complete huge fan of people who do these self-pronouncements. I am rich. I am,
Right.
they do all these just really like new agey kind of, I'm not into
Right.
that. I'm just not a fan of that. However, the thing that they are doing it in a way that I don't feel comfortable with, but the fact that they're speaking things that there is something to that. And so all of a sudden there's these wonderful things in scripture. You guys can look up the who I am in Christ's. I am righteous.
Yes.
I have the mind of Christ. I have been given everything that I need for life and godliness. I am a child of God. I have self-control. All of these things that are derived from scripture, not derived from new age, whatever. But those to speak those things over your life are actually quite powerful, and they can be a palpable change in our world.
Yes.
So find the identity that you want and start moving toward that. Okay, so this leads us, as we're closing off here today, where do we start? So a growth mindset. Fall in love with the process, not the goal. I already like this one. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, man, this one, once I understood this, everything changed for me. Seriously, I could have done the podcast today on just this one thing. Because what we do is we often set a goal, and it's not the goal that's the problem. We should set goals, okay? You have to have something you're pointing towards.
I agree.
But you should actually, but if you set a goal and then that goal is going to take you 6 months. Let's say for you, Josh, you want to lose the COVID-20, okay?
COVID-19. It's only 19, Bill. It's not 20. Let's get the goal straight here.
Sorry. COVID-19. You want to lose the COVID-19, right? The problem with setting the goal of losing 19 pounds isn't the goal. You should set that goal. It's great. The problem is every day that you're not 19 pounds less, you believe in your mind that you're losing, right?
That's right.
And so the way that you kind of like change your mindset on that and have a growth mindset in that area is you say, what are the things that I can do consistently over and over again that is going to get me to that goal? And then I'm going to call that thing that I'm doing my win, right? So for you, in your scenario, it's 100 push-ups, right? And you might have to add things to that. You might have to change your diet, all those things.
Of course.
But every single time you do that push-up set, those sets of push-ups, you have now won for the day, right? And so now you're like, I'm killing it every day. Every day I do this, I'm killing it. Every day I show up to do the process and I love the process, I am winning, right?
That's right.
You don't have to wait until you lost 19 pounds to win. You win every single day.
That means counting your wins daily. And to be like, here, it's like, it is an attaboy. It is a pat on the back. It is, I did. And by the way, stick with me. I'm not going to do 100 push-ups today. I tweaked my arm a little bit. That's fine. But I'm going to do something. And I can count that small something as a micro win.
Yeah.
And so now we're counting daily wins. Even if it's, you know what? I cleaned off the majority of my desk. Victory. You aren't there yet, but you can get closer.
Right. You're training.
You're training. You're in training. Okay. Measure against your past self, not your ideal self. Now, this is a huge one because when you want to move towards a growth mindset, it's incremental growth. It's not saying, hey, here's, the Josh 3.0 who is, all of these wonderful things. That's a really hard thing to compare against. And it's this mythical ideal. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a moving target. Like if you are always measuring yourself against your ideal self, then you're always losing because it doesn't matter how far you've come. There's no point that in which you arrive.
That's exactly right. But if I can look back at yesterday and go, hey, you know what? I was only able to do 10 push-ups and I was ripping sore. And now I did 100 and I'm not in death pain. That's a victory. Or,
yes,
I in a typical situation when it's late at night and my daughter who's 17 wants to come in and hang out in our bed at the foot of the bed, and my former self would freak out and get mad because I'm literally falling asleep. Leave my presence, And so an incremental self is, a guy who has a great relationship with his daughter. Here's what he does.
Yes, absolutely.
Here's what he does. He sacrifices a little bit of his sleep, and he's playful and he's funny, and he knows this isn't going to last forever. That's what that's what the dad that I want to be would do. But I'm not going to, so then I can incrementally say, yesterday I flipped out and told her to get out of my room. I'm sleeping. And I can actually do a better just today, not to become this future dad. I like that.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the next one here. Plan to fail. Ouch. Truth, but it's going to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And this is so important because a lot of times failure will derail you from a growth mindset and you will revert back to who you were previously. And so like, instead of that happening, going into the whole scenario, you need to say, you know what? There's going to be a time where I wake up and I tweak my shoulder and I'm not going to do the 100 push-ups, right?
Yep.
And you need to decide ahead of time what you're going to do about that, right?
Exactly. As opposed to pitching the whole thing. Well, I guess I'm done.
Right. There's this perfection mindset. And I did that for years.
I still live with that.
With clean up my eating, it'd be like, okay, I'm doing so good. 3 weeks, I've eaten just perfectly. I'm just eating, whole foods, nothing wrong. And all of a sudden, like, the kids are like, we need ice cream. And so, like, I have a small bowl of ice cream. Like, well, now it's over. So now we're doing Doritos.
Yeah.
Now we're doing Oreos.
It doesn't have to be that way. In other words, just because you went home at the end of the day and your office is still a wreck does not mean that, like, you're the alcoholic again. You're off the bandwagon. Go on the bender. No, stop. Yes. It's a good case of the normals to fail.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a really helpful thing. Write it down. Write it down.
Yep. I know. I feel like we're going to say this in Lead Yourself, this little mini series we're doing over and over again. Write it down.
But it's the truth because it's so powerful.
Yes, absolutely.
So whether it's a journal, and by the way, you're writing down, hey, yesterday I didn't spaz out on my daughter when she was in our bed at 12:15 p.m. now. You know what I mean? And so it's marking down your victories. And it's also marking down, hey, I had a failure yesterday, and putting a big thumbs up next to that and go, that's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yep. Identify stuck areas. Okay. And this sounds like a good case of the normals, but that's what we need to do. We need to go, you know what? I continue to have problems here. That I think calling that out and just identifying it. By the way, write it down and also have a friend, right?
Yes.
Have a friend in your life. And that friend is going to help you be less self-deprecating. That friend is going to help you to make sure that you're not in a fixed mindset and you're down on yourself. Okay, talk to us about this last one, the 10x exponential growth, excuse me.
Yes. So this is just an idea that actually our ability to change and grow is always more than we think it is. And I don't think people really get this, but you can easily think about an area of your life and say to yourself, what would it look like if I was 10 times better in this area, right? What would that actually look like if I was 10 times better in this area? And we can grow a lot more than we think we can.
Yes.
And so I'm not saying create your ideal self that you can never reach. I'm saying
don't underestimate yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And so what would a 10 times growth be in the area of health or in the area of organization or the area of whatever it is. And if you've aligned your core values and you are doing consistent growth every day, you will see exponential growth on your life. God can do amazing things in us and
Yes.
through us, and he does.
And I am truly a living example of this. And we all have our own life story where all of a sudden it's like, wow, good for you. And we often run into people who seem as if they have every single thing put together. Little does everybody know that there is a former self that wasn't that person. And they literally just committed and they pushed hard and they wanted to live their one and only God-given life differently.
Yep.
And that's what we can do. Well, gang, this has been fun. We're talking about self-growth. We're talking about making yourself better, leading yourself so that you can be the most effective ministry leader that you ever possibly could. Identify that one thing, make it happen. Take a simple and small step. And gang, we're grateful that you're here. We will catch you guys next time on the Lead Ministry Podcast.